All right, awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining, and hopefully some of you, I think Chad, I recognize your name from the talk yesterday, so you're getting the full People Track experience here. But of course, all of this will be recorded and shared out on all the social media channels and things after the fact. So if you guys missed yesterday's session or any of the People Track sessions coming later this week, you'll be able to watch them again later. So but today's conversation definitely is a great kind of complement and, second step to what we started yesterday. And joining us today are Melanie Della Pietra and Justin Johnson. So we're excited to have them, and they have had the pleasure of working together in the past and are going to present a case study today. For the theme of today's track, which is building or today's session, which is building a scalable talent strategy. So yesterday we talked about recruiting and selection, but certainly if you can't keep people and use them well and keep them engaged and satisfied, it's not really going to matter how well you do at recruiting and selecting them. So to give a brief introduction here on Melanie and Justin. So Melanie first. Melanie was the first 15 years of Melanie's professional career were spent supporting small local technology companies and a large global corporation across all aspects of HR. In 2019, she took the leap to start her own business, a people-centered HR consulting agency. During the past 2.5 years, she has worked across multiple industries, including market research, managed services, construction, and the arts. And while the variety has been interesting, her heart and passion lies in tech. So she's recently come full circle, returning to the tech industry as program coordinator for the new Embark program and incubation service program at Next Corp, which is in Rochester. She now fulfills her why of maximizing the potential in people, organizations, and the community by combining her experience as an HR professional and a business founder to support local startups on their journey. And that's out in Rochester, but that's not far from Buffalo. As a co-founder of Disrupt HR Rochester, Melanie also strives to inspire new ways of addressing persistent challenges in organizations and their community. And Melanie holds a bachelor's degree in management from St. John Fisher, a change leadership certification from Cornell, and is a certified emotional intelligence assessor and practitioner, which is a skill we all need more of nowadays. So welcome, Melanie. And we have Justin Johnson. So Justin holds an MBA from the University of Rochester and was the first person in his family to graduate college. His most recent role was as the vice president of operations for a capital equipment company just outside of Atlanta. In previous roles, he has led the successful creation of an inside sales team, led the flourishing turnaround of an aftermarket division, and led the customer service organization within a telecom startup that went from 10 million to over 100 million in 4 years. People are at the center of any strategy that Justin develops, whether it's a turnaround situation or a startup. Justin is passionate about recruiting and retaining top talent as the key to unlocking an organization's true potential. And I could not agree more. So, Melanie and Justin, take us away and tell us how we can build a talent strategy that works best for our businesses.
All right. So obviously Justin and I have very different skill sets and career backgrounds. So that's what I'm really excited about with today's presentation, is that you get to hear from both of our perspectives, and we expect our presentation will take about 30 minutes. And we do expect to have time at the end for questions. So feel free to save up your questions, and we will have plenty of time to answer them at the end. All righty. Now I need to make sure that my computer is going to click forward. Oh, there we go. All right. So yes, if you are with a startup or an early business, you definitely have a unique opportunity to build your talent strategy from day one in a way that will not only attract talent today, but in the future. So why is retaining team members so important? And I know that Emily mentioned yesterday, or building off of yesterday's presentation, that if you hire them and can't keep them, then it kind of defeats the purpose. So I'm going to hand this part over to Justin.
Yeah, we wanted to start by jumping into some numbers that may seem scary, but when we get to the end of this, you'll see that there's things that you can do that make these numbers not so scary, right? Like, so for example, when a team member leaves, it can cost your company anywhere from 16% to 213% of their annual salary to replace them. And obviously that's a very wide gap, but it just shows that it's very expensive to replace somebody, when they do leave the company, especially when you have someone that's a star performer. The last thing you want to do is to have to replace them, and that's not counting the loss of productivity from not having that person or the ramp up period. And then 70% of American workers would leave their current job for one that has a reputation of investing in employee development. So this strategy of investing in an employee development program, it's not just about keeping your stars, it's also about attracting more stars. And once you create this culture of employee development, you'll see that your employees will go out and they'll talk to their friends and family about it. I know that when I go out for a couple of drinks with some friends, there's a lot of time where people will start complaining about jobs, right? And I've been fortunate enough to have roles where I've been able to speak very positively about employee development and some other things that my companies have been doing. And it has not been uncommon for a friend to say, hey, let me know if you see anything in marketing or something like that. So it's an opportunity to get the word out on how great your company is as well. And then Gallup finds that companies fail to choose the candidate with the right talent for the job 82% of the time. So when a star does leave the company, there's a 82% chance that you'll probably get that hire wrong when you do try to backfill them. So it's just even more reason to make sure that we're hiring and retaining the people that we want to retain. And this one, to me, is the most interesting chart. It's that if you can find somebody, if you do have to backfill, if you look at the professional and business services, there's 1.8 million job openings, but only about 900,000 people that are unemployed that meet the requirements for those jobs. And if you look at education and health services, if you look at wholesale and retail trade, leisure and hospitality, manufacturing, all of these industries have way more job openings than there are unemployed people that can potentially backfill them. So, which means that you're going to get into situations where it's current employees that are leaving their current companies, and everyone's going to be going after the same pool of candidates. So it's just going to make it that much harder to bring in those stars and find them.
All right, so we are going to dive into a case study that, again, real life experience. So some background on how we got here and where this case study came from. So we had an outside sales team that was spending way too much time farming versus hunting. So spending too much time with their current clients, clients who kind of become their friends, and clients who were maybe not the largest spending clients as well. So really a lot of attention for the outside sales team was in the wrong direction. We had an inconsistent support structure for the sales team, for the outside sales team. So it was a blend of inside sales and pre-sales, which we'll talk a little bit more about. And the one consistent factor was that both support teams were more reactive in nature. So they would basically take support requests from the outside sales team. So our solution was to have the outside sales team focus the majority of their efforts on our top 20% of our customers, which accounted for 80% in sales. So really getting them targeted on the large revenue clients. And then our inside sales team and our pre-sales teams were combined and restructured so that they were proactive, also generating revenue and focusing on those remaining clients that accounted for the lower 20% in sales. And again, making sure that regardless of the sales, that everybody was getting the attention that they deserved. And then the inside sales team also relocated to Rochester and was built out to support all of our business units and the entire outside sales team similarly. So we'll go through a bit of a timeline. So in 2012, we made the announcement that sales was going to be reorganized, what outside sales was going to focus on, and what the new combined inside sales team looks like. And at that point, we brought in Justin as the new supervisor, and we essentially hired him with his team. So on his first day, he had team members right there with him in onboarding, and you'll understand in a little while why I put that with in italics. So I'm going to let Justin kind of jump in and take it from here.
Yeah, and so the very first year of the team, we saw 67% turnover in year one. So it's a huge number. 0% were internal promotions. Year two, we saw 27% external turnover, 0% internal promotions. And then year three, 14% external turnover, 0% internal promotions. And so the majority of the team, they're all brand new at this point. And, people don't change unless it's painful, right? And so we had to change something because we were just going through too many great candidates. And what was happening was we had star players that were going to competitors, and we had internal positions open that our competitors were giving them, but our internal team would just not give them the time of day. Our outside sales directors, our marketing directors, for whatever reason, whether it was the stigma of inside sales or just not the perfect experience that they might have been looking for, they weren't even getting interviews. And so Melly and I said, we have to do something about this. So we sought out to change that. And so in year four, we saw 35% external turnover. And that's really what made us go, okay, it's not just something trending in the right direction. Now it's like back up again. We have to do something. So we sat down and we really hammered out this career development program that we're going to talk about. And we met with a lot of external stakeholders, and I say external outside of our department, in terms of the inside sales department. So we met with a lot of those hiring managers that weren't giving the team the opportunity. We said, okay, well, what is it that you're looking for? And so we mapped out this entire career development program that we'll talk a little bit more later on. And then in 2017, we started seeing some significant changes. So in 2017, only 6% external turnover, but 27% internal promotions. And then in 2018, 17% external turnover, but 25% internal promotions. And in the inside sales industry, it tends to be a very high turnover field. And so getting numbers like 6%, 17%, that's probably half of the industry standard when it comes to turnover. So these numbers are fantastic. And the fact that we had 27% internal promotions, 25% internal promotions after 4 years of 0% was significant and really spoke to the incredible talent that we were bringing in the door.
Just we're not able to showcase them in the right ways. So
that's right.
And so Justin and I both left the organization in 2017 and 2018, or Justin stayed with the organization, but into a different role. But we do have an update about where things stand today.
So the way we rolled out this career development program is we actually started talking about it during the hiring process. It was something that we wanted to let them know that this was something important to us, for candidates that were considering us. And when we saw the statistics earlier that there's a lot more jobs out there than there are people that are able to fill them. And so knowing that you're competing against a lot of other companies when somebody applies for you, right? And so we wanted to make sure that they understood how important it was to us during the interview process. And we were able to give exact examples of people that were going on and doing bigger and better things for the organization. Because as managers and leaders, like that's what our job is. We want team members that go on and do bigger and better things for the company. And then so we talked about it during the hiring process. We even got some people that decided to join our team for less money than they were being offered out at other places because of this program. Once we hired them, we actually scheduled all of the future meetings in their first week, so that they knew how important this truly was to us. And it wasn't just lip service, it was something that we truly cared about. And so that first week we would schedule the 90-day review. So their first week, it's on the calendar. In 90 days, we're going to talk about their progress. How are they doing in their current role? What walls are in their way? What can I do to help them? And then at the 6-month mark, we would actually have them go on and fill out their internal profile, which they had to answer questions like, are they open for relocation? What education do they have? What prior work experience? Any volunteer experience? And what are their preferences in terms of marketing, sales? Like, what is it that they may want to go do next? And then at the 1-year mark was a formalized career development discussion with human resources with me as their manager and with the next level manager up, which happened to be the president of North America at the time. And so the 90-day review, the 6-month and the 12-month career development discussion, these are all things put on their calendar their first week to show we're serious about this. And then at the between 12 and 18 months, that's when they're really focusing on the things that we talked about in that career development discussion. So they're doing some shadowing opportunities, because a lot of times people don't know exactly what they want to do. So we'll set up a bunch of shadows with other departments. There might be some trainings that we talked about them taking, some special projects. So this is where they're really focused on those things that we talked about in the career development discussion. And then at the 18-month mark, that's when employees were formally allowed to apply to internal roles. But at the same time, we've always used that as a loose requirement. We had associates that at the 11, 12-month mark, the perfect role for them happened to open up. They met all the qualifications. They were a great candidate. And it was just one of those things where there's no way we were going to hold somebody back from that, because it was just too perfect of an opportunity. And so here's one of the example kind of development tracks that we worked on. So this one specifically is marketing, but we also had one for leadership. We had one for outside sales. And we also had one that said custom. If people were interested in building something custom, we would figure out a way to do that. And so employees would come in, there'd be a robust kind of onboarding process with certified trainings and product trainings. And then we created this senior inside sales representative role, because we wanted a way to distinguish those associates that were maybe ready for that next step and to create that career progression without this big new formalized promotion or something like that. So it was something really easy that we could do. And so, we had some requirements that they had to be meeting their sales goal or exceeding their sales goal. They had to be, attend a trade show, that sort of thing. And then we got with the hiring manager in marketing and said, okay, if you were going to consider somebody, tell us what you'd need from them. And so, for example, participate in a trade show planning team, right? And something that every marketing team does. And so we were able to get our senior inside sales reps involved in the strategizing of trade shows and new product launches, that sort of thing. And we even designated up to 25% of their working hours towards supporting marketing projects. And so the hiring managers in marketing really got to know how great these associates were and how much potential they truly had. But the key was that they had to keep meeting and exceeding their sales goal to have that kind of carrot in front of them. And what was happening is what we saw was the other inside sales representatives that weren't these senior team members, they saw how involved the senior guys were in all of the different aspects to marketing and outside sales and that sort of thing. And almost it really motivated them to want to get to that next role as well.
So I wanted to talk through kind of the format of what that career discussion looks like. So career goals and objectives. And what we found out, or what we noticed really quickly, was that there were a lot of folks who didn't really know what their goals were, right? They didn't really know all of what was available, and others didn't want to necessarily pick one thing. So we really talked kind of generally, right, about what they enjoy seeing most and least on their calendar, or what gives them energy, what leaves them feeling drained. And then what would they like to do more and less of? So really just lots of big picture types of questions. And then also talking through their individual strengths and development opportunities, both from their perspective, from their manager's perspective, and their next level manager's perspective. And again, some employees that I knew very well, I could also give some inputs here. And then once we get all this information together, we put together an action plan. So this is that action plan that employees would work through during that 12 to 18-month stretch that Justin talked about. One thing I will add that I know people always ask is we will send out these slides at the end, and the video will be available. So you'll have all this information. So I wanted to show an example of what a completed career development discussion might look like. And we kind of put this together based on what we saw in real life working with the teams. And obviously the name is made up. So in terms of what this particular employee enjoyed most was interfacing with clients in person, the opportunity to consult, problem solve, and share their expertise. And then enjoying less was being on the phone. We heard that a lot, right? That a lot of employees didn't like to be on the phone all day long, answering or making phone calls. What they wanted more of was more in-person consultation opportunity, and what they wanted less of was, again, time on the phone and administrative work. And then in terms of strengths and development opportunities, the one thing I want to point out here is, so Anna in this case said that she was positive at relationship building, whereas her manager, Justin, had said really strong relationships with the business unit, but less strong relationships within their team. So that was really something we focused on a lot, was development of leadership skills and bringing others along, mentoring others, training others within their own team. So this was just an example of some of the things that would come out in these discussions, that Anna perceived that her relationship skills were broadly solid, or as it gave Justin that opportunity to say, hey, you're doing great here. I also need you to come along a little bit over here with your team.
It was really important for us that people on the team saw this senior inside sales role as a leadership role, as somebody that they can go to, you know, if the manager's not there. But it was really important that it was somebody that the team looked up to in a leadership kind of way.
So this is an example of what an action plan might look like. And so the one thing I want to highlight here is a lot of these action items you'll see are carried over from the discussion form. Due dates, so end of different quarters, and then some of these things are ongoing. So again, in Anna's case, it was that enhancing approachability with the team, training new employees on product knowledge, and then mentoring current team members who need additional support. And the other thing I wanted to point out is that while the overall plan was the employee's responsibility to kind of own and drive, I know Justin mentioned that early on, that we really encouraged every employee to take ownership of their own development. Everybody had a role, so everybody had follow-up action. So I might have responsibility for helping identify when the next training opportunity was coming in, or taking everybody's training opportunities and needs and then saying, hey, I'm going to make sure I bring this on site for everybody to do. Justin might have some follow-up opportunities to coordinate when somebody could do a ride along with outside sales. And then again, Anna, the employee, also had several follow-up opportunities.
And the action plan, we reviewed this during our regular one-on-ones, and I'm a big one-on-one person. And so every month we would sit down and we would actually have a conversation about this action plan and where things are at. And it's really important for that, even though I had some action items, I could not make up the excuse of, hey, I didn't have time to do this for you, blah, blah, blah. Because then how important really is it to me for their career development, right? So it also held me accountable too, to make sure I was doing the things that I was supposed to be doing for them as well, that I've committed to. So they're seeing that I'm holding up my end of the bargain, and you know, we're having regular discussions about, you know, if there's something that they're struggling with, like, let's talk about how we can work through it.
Yep, and keeping this just top of mind, and really making the living document that would be, again, revisited monthly, work towards for the following review. So it really brings that performance management and development management to the forefront.
Yeah, so here's a couple of stories of, you know, I know facts tell and stories sell, right? So we just wanted to talk a little bit about Keenan's story. So Keenan actually, he was working at a pizza place, I want to say it was, when we hired him, and he came in a pre-sales role, and we promoted him to inside sales after 12 months. And then he was one of those people that left to a competitor in 2016. So we had a superstar inside sales representative that we now had to compete against because our team didn't give him a chance internally at an outside sales role. And so naturally he was great for the competitor, and we wanted to try to get him back. And after we rolled out this career development program, he actually came back to us in 2017. He was promoted to senior inside sales representative in January of 18. He actually took over for my team lead when I left, as she was promoted to my backfill. And now he actually manages the entire team, the role that I had when I was there. So this program got him back into the fold, and now he's on a leadership track. And so Rob's also another success story from this. I actually met Rob at a retail store, and he had the product line knowledge that we were looking for. So I gave him my business card, and he was the very first person promoted to senior inside sales. And him and Keegan actually had a good relationship. So he was also able to tell the story about what this career development program was doing for him personally. He supported sales and marketing with some special projects while he was in a senior inside sales role. And he was somebody that was interviewing for other roles internally, but was getting passed over because they just didn't know him, because they didn't have the FaceTime with him. And now he was actually promoted to regional marketing manager in what he has told me is his absolute dream job in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm sure he probably doesn't want to be in Minnesota, but he said it's the job he's always wanted in the product line he's always wanted. So it's just another one of those stories where we got him in front of the right people, and he did the rest.
Yep. And he was patient, and he knew we were working for him, with him, for him. So I'll share Emily's story. So Emily worked in one of the business units that I supported. She came in as a co-op and ended up spending 12 months with us. And so we had a rule that at 12 months, we either had to hire a co-op full-time or have them leave the organization. We couldn't keep somebody on for more than 12 months. So I went to Justin and said, hey, I've got this great talent. We don't have an opportunity for her in the business unit right now. Her ideal path is marketing. What do you think? Thinking about sales for her being a great complementary skill set to her marketing background. So Justin and I talked about it, and Justin, took a shot and brought Emily over into inside sales. And we did allow her to support some marketing projects, specifically with the business unit that she had the co-op in. And she was able to gain additional experience across other product lines. And she's another success story that we were able to bridge that gap, not lose a good talent, have her get some complementary experience. And she's in Michigan working as a marketing analyst. So lessons learned, right? We've shared a lot of information with you and really want to go through some of our key takeaways. So first and foremost, that hiring a manager first. So if you are building a team, right, as a startup, you're looking to start a function within your organization, hire a manager first and let them hire their own team and let them kind of grow into that.
Yeah, I'll preface that with, if you're also going to hire the manager as well, right? I know a lot of startups, they run lean and everybody wears multiple hats. So you may be hiring somebody for like a customer success role and you don't have plans to hire the manager, right? That's a little bit different than what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is I started on a day with a couple of the team members that I had, whereas I would have preferred to have been able to hire the team that I wanted to lead, because I would look for very different competencies than maybe what was hired for.
And this one we kind of mentioned already, that internal transfers without buy-in failed. So when we combine that inside sales and the pre-sales team, we took individuals who were highly successful at quoting products and availability and working with customers, and the outside sales team to provide information about product availability and functions and things like that. And then we said to them, well, you're now going to be inside sales. And it was like, well, I don't want to be inside sales. So thankfully, in time, when we realized that kind of what we had done was not a good idea, we put pre-sales back in place, and those two individuals moved back into those roles and are still with the organization, still very highly successful in what they're doing. So again, one of those square peg round hole. If you realize that you maybe did something that wasn't right, definitely fix it before it crumbles around you. Our most successful hires had grit. So as Justin mentioned, hiring out of retail, hiring out of a pizza shop, and being able to see those skills that you can't train in a person. They were motivated and wanted more. Listening and adapting to internal stakeholder feedback. So I know Justin talked about the conversations that he had with these departments to say, hey, what do my folks need to do to show you that they can do this job, right? That they can run and keep up with others doing this job on your team.
Yeah, and the key there was Melanie and I owned that problem, that our team members weren't being promoted internally. Like, we took the ownership of that being on us. Like, we didn't blame anybody. We weren't complaining about it. We just said, okay, what do we need to do to fix this? And let's talk to people. Let's sit down. Let's game plan. And we really took the ownership of doing something about it.
Right. Yes, we listened and adapted to feedback, even if it hurt. Even if you have to go, you know what? I made a mistake. That was a bad choice.
Yep.
So, and then identifying, documenting, and providing transparency for employees about what they needed to do to grow. And again, having that feedback from those departments to be able to say, hey, you know what, to get into marketing, here's what marketing wants to see. 18 months was too long to wait for an ambitious high performer to at least start on their development and to know that they did have a path forward. Everybody's path is unique. So as Justin mentioned, when he talked through those different paths and the guidelines, that again, we allowed for a lot of variation in there. Allowing time to gain visibility in other departments. So again, allowing employees to be able to say, hey, you know what, I think I want to do marketing, or I think I want to do product management. And then giving them that chance to learn what that job is all about, right? We've all had that experience where we look and say, oh, that job looks pretty cool, or that job looks easy, or, what does that person do all day? And then you go learn what they do all day and you're like, ooh, that's not what I thought it was. But again, giving those departments the opportunity to meet people and to see what they could do, to see how much potential really was there. Allowing for role differentiation. So you oftentimes hear a manager say, I need to hire somebody just like so-and-so. And we really took that approach of, we need to hire somebody who complements so-and-so, or would work well with so-and-so, and has those really core fundamental attitude and just drive, and we could train them on the rest. And then allowing for incremental steps. So that's really what that senior inside sales role was a bridge to help bridge that perceived gap in experience and knowledge that the other departments saw between inside sales and maybe stepping into outside sales. So that senior inside sales role really was that incremental. And then again, just projects, right? Giving people sometimes the opportunity to learn horizontally rather than just vertical all the time. So reality is the current and future talent market. So I'm not going to run through all the traditional method. If you've been in the workforce for any amount of time, you've likely experienced a lot of these things. So I just kind of want to focus on the going forward, that when a skills gap emerges, demonstrating that there's internal growth available for all. And what I like to focus on here is a lot of times people might think that leadership is the only track, or, I need to manage people to grow. And we were very careful to let people know that there were plenty of opportunities that did not involve managing people. And you'll see as we get through some of the next slides that hiring the wrong manager can be detrimental to success. Making sure you're evaluating your candidates for potential, grit, values, and attitude. So positive attitude. Somebody could have all the great experience in the world, but if you bring in a positive attitude, it's not going to go well. Looking for diverse talent, taking a proactive approach to recruiting diverse talent for decision-making roles. So a lot of times companies have diverse talent in their lower level roles, but making sure that that's throughout your organization and really getting diverse opinions and perspectives at that leadership table where decisions are made. When a new employee starts, spreading out the onboarding. So again, Justin did a great job of talking about what he did for the first 18 months with his team. We talked about incremental steps. So job descriptions, again, making them employee driven, giving some employees latitude to talk about what things they want to add to their job descriptions and what things they might want to take out. So if you don't have the ability to completely move somebody in a new position, right? As a startup, as a smaller organization, you may have just a few small roles within your team, or actually probably a few large roles within your team, right? That people wear a lot of hats. So allowing people over time to kind of like trade responsibilities or shift responsibilities, or bring in a lower level person and let those descriptions be employee driven. conducting stay interviews. So instead of waiting for people to leave and doing exit interviews, asking them, why you're here? Why do you stay? Focusing on a proactive employer value proposition. If you're going to use assessments, making sure you're integrating them into culture and using them to help people understand themselves better, communicate better with others. The worst thing you can do with an assessment is just to use it to hire and then either putting it in a drawer or letting the assessment kind of make a hiring decision for you. Those are all the things that have given assessments a bad name over time. And then norms are really driven by people. So a leader can define kind of the values that you have, but making sure that you're really listening to your people when it comes to how things are going and norms within the company. So why are workers really leaving their jobs, right? I know yesterday someone mentioned the great resignation, and I liked that, I think it was Claire Petrie said that, no, it's the great reprioritization. And that is so true. So why workers are really leaving their jobs. A big part of it is relationships with their bosses. So if people aren't getting development, if they aren't feeling valued, if they aren't having the flexibility to continue having work-life balance, they're not going to stay. So those willing to lay their ego aside and grow as leaders need to improve in 3 crucial areas. And again, you know, ego, as Justin mentioned, was a big part of being able to step back and reevaluate how we did things with the inside sales team. So communication is one. And the one thing I want to point out here is, you know, everybody thinks that they're great at communication, yet according to this predictive index report, communication is the #1 skill that employees feel their manager lacks. So I would encourage to kind of sit back and think about communication, and if we're as good as we think we are at it. The second thing is psychological safety and making environments where employees feel comfortable to speak up, experiment, get feedback. And the one thing I wanted to add here is, if you're the owner or the leader, the founder of a company, and you walk around and ask employees how things are going, how's your job, how's your day, they're most likely going to tell you, oh, everything's great, everything's wonderful. So you want to make sure that you do have an environment that even the employees that, again, are lower level and not your direct reports, even with your direct reports, right? Making sure that they're going to give you honest feedback and know that they don't have to be afraid of retaliation or, you know, how dare they say that, you know, this company is great. And then third, providing those growth opportunities. So even as a startup, right, and if you have different roles on your team, giving your employees space to learn and stretch and grow is very important. So Adam Grant, Emily had mentioned Adam Grant right at the start before we got on the live Zoom here. But bad managers keep people trapped in dead-end jobs, right? We all have, like, I need this person to do this job, but it's not necessarily helping them achieve their goals. Good managers create opportunities for people to grow and advance. And then great managers encourage people to pursue growth and advancement, even if it means leaving for another team, organization, working for another manager. So even if you lose your best talent, if you lose them internally, and you're still helping the overall organization, and even if they leave externally, they're still going to talk positively of you on the outside. So as Justin mentioned, building that culture of that, hey, you know, people don't stifle here, people grow. And even if you don't stay, we're going to help you grow. All right, resources. I've been doing a lot of talking. Before I jump into this, does anybody have any questions?
I might ask a question, Melanie.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, this is amazing content, and it gets me jazzed up because it's so much of what I do with my clients, even informally, and trying to like take them a more holistic, have them take a more holistic approach with their staff, whether it's hiring or developing internally. But my question is, especially for, you know, a startup or many small businesses, even if you're not a startup who don't have like an HR person overseeing a program like this, or all of people ops, like who ultimately is responsible for making sure this happens in the organization?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, yeah, I mean, I would say just like everything, right? It comes from the top. So
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of those, it's a culture that you want to establish early on, right? And I mean, I know just at NextCore, we have we have several teams, but one team in particular I'm thinking of that there's two senior people, and one of those senior people does, accounting, finance, operations, HR, like so many things. So trying to start peeling some of those things back. And, as this person does that, they need to make sure that they're empowered to do that and then give up the pieces that they want to give up, right? And again, so it's up to the key head president or founder to say, okay, yes, like I want you to be happy. I mean, it's setting that right up front that, yep, don't keep the things you don't want to keep the things you do want to keep. So
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that.
yeah. Anything to add, Justin?
Nope, that was perfect.
Any other questions before we dive into the resources? All right. So again, these slides will be sent out, but I wanted to mention again, training grants. There are several initiatives, especially if you are in a tech space, emerging technology, climate related sustainability. I'm trying to think of what else. But again, I definitely encourage you to go out to the New York State Department of Labor site. There are links in here when you get this that you can look at the different initiatives that are available, and for interns. So even if you're small and you don't have a team, you do have the ability to have an internship half paid for. So I believe it's up to $3,000 and it covers up to half of their salary. So it would get you a summer intern. And then there are also apprenticeship programs. And I just wanted to mention this because, again, historically, apprenticeships have been things like electricians and construction. Going forward, there are many new trades pending as an apprenticeship. So when you think about taking talent and helping get them ready, right? So I even feel like, yeah, sales associate was on here, Justin, that we could have had a inside sales apprenticeship program to put people through and help them find positions. So if you're going to be hiring several of a specific position, that apprenticeship program is something to think about. Grit Seed, I wanted to mention. I know many of the folks on the call are from Buffalo. You may know Raj. And so Grit Seed, Raj had a startup, hired for Grit, and then for his next act, built out Grit Seed to help other companies do the same thing. So hiring kind of the way he did and taking somebody who maybe didn't have an engineering degree and helping them learn how to code, as one example.
I think it was it Angela Ducksworth that wrote the book about grit and how that's like the leading indicator for success for somebody. So it's certainly a competency that I know my fiance, who is part of the residency program at the hospital down here in Atlanta, this is something that they look for as well.
It's interesting. Pivot and Edge is another company. They're in Ottawa, Canada, but they work globally. And they are an agency that works specifically with startups. So they know all the different ins and outs, depending on your stage. They can help you find the right people. They also do a lot with employer branding. So they have some packages. And so I definitely wanted to put their information in here so they can even help get all of your initial hiring and again, branding set up for you. So more on this case study. There's a Disrupt HR video that I did that talks more about this case study, and then a blog post that again goes into some more detail about the 3 keys to developing and retaining talent. I put in a link to a system called Smart Start. So I know this came up on yesterday's recruiting panel about applicant tracking systems. So Smart Start is designed for small businesses. It is, if you have less than 10 positions open at any one time, you can use their system for free. And it posts out to like Indeed and Glassdoor and all the major job boards, LinkedIn. And so it again, just helps you kind of keep track of everything. The other thing that's nice is you can keep track of even your current employees in there and their development paths. So So again, and it's scalable. So if you grow and you have more than 10 postings, you can scale up to the paid version and keep on going. Oh, and I see there's a couple things in the chat.
Awesome tip. I'm going to check out that tool, Melanie.
Oh yeah, no, it's great. Well, and so here's the funny thing is the organization where Justin and I worked together, we used the paid version, right? It was a huge enterprise system. So then when I started my own business and I started working with clients, I was like, holy cow, like I can basically use the same system in a scaled back version. And yeah, it was incredible.
Great. Yeah,
so,
incredible.
Right, because I said there's nothing that makes me sad. Well, there are things that make me sadder, but when it comes to startups and hiring, what makes me saddest is seeing a company invest so much money in like Indeed and Glassdoor,
right,
paying way more money than they need to when they could have a full system. So
yeah, I think that's a good point too, and that allows you to start using a system versus like an Indeed that's just sending you resumes. This came up yesterday, where you're not tracking any data, right? You're just getting emails, resumes in your inbox. Like you don't understand the true impact of a program like this or efforts like this because you have no benchmark point of what your turnover was or how much was it costing you to make those hires. So I think that's a good point, is to do something to start tracking data now on these things.
Right. And then if you have a resume come in that maybe, again, we had pre-sales and inside sales. So maybe somebody applied for inside sales, but they were about to go for pre-sales. So you put them on hold until you have that need. So
yeah, it's a great point. It builds an internal like archive for yourself. So you don't have to go back to the LinkedIn's or Indeed's later. You can search within your own archive. Yeah.
Yep. So I'll ask one more time if there's any questions. And if not, I do have one more little tidbit that I saved for the end if we had time.
You guys can put them in the chat or you can unmute yourselves. I think everyone has the ability to speak here and shout it out.
All right. There are also links in that grid that I shared, the table with the traditional method and the future method. So there's like a link to an article in each one of those if anybody wants more info, like what are some good stay interview questions?
Yeah, I love that.
So yes and versus yes but. So Emily, have you done any work with this?
A little bit, yes.
So this was something that was brought to my attention. Caitlin Drago is here in Rochester and she teaches about this concept. And so I just wanted to mention it here because when it comes to employee development, but can be a real motivation crusher, right? So when you say things like yes, and ideas are safe, right? People can kind of keep going, promotes collaboration. So ideas are built upon rather than just being kind of shut down. And you can get a lot of ideas quickly. So I'm going to kind of just, I didn't mean to have this whole thing out here, but that's okay. So like I said, this is a bonus. So I just want to kind of position this in the terms of employee development, right? So back to Anna, who was the example that I did with the career development discussion, that if Anna goes to Justin and says, I hear there's an opening in marketing and I'd like to apply, what do you think? And Justin says, oh yeah, I heard about that, but you've only been here 15 months, so I don't think you can apply. Right? Like bubble burst. Whereas if Justin said, yeah, I heard about that position and I definitely think you should apply, the interview experience alone will be valuable for you, right? So it's sort of a way of saying the same thing and still saying, well, you might not get it, right? You maybe haven't been here long enough, but like going through the process will be good for you. And then the other one was, there's a trade show coming up and I would love to represent our team at the booth. Is there budget for me to attend? There's a big difference between, yes, we do have budget to send 2 team members, but I haven't decided which business units to represent. Versus, yes, we do have a budget to send 2 team members. And if we decide to have your BU represented, I would definitely consider sending you. So that's just that additional little tip when you're talking with people about their development. Yes, you've accomplished a lot, but you still need to work on this, right? So, so don't do it.
Yeah, words are so important in language, and I like that you mentioned psychological safety, and that really is about trust. And I think Adam Grant has an awesome podcast episode on work life that talks about that in a really like cool way. So I would recommend people listen to that too.
Yeah, and I think as leaders, I mean, I'm not sure we fully understand the power of the things that we say and how it affects people, whether they're in the office or at home. Like these things impact their days in a significant way. Just this little and but, it's a big difference.
I think that's a great point maybe to end on too, Justin. I don't think leaders, whether it's like a first line manager or someone in a C-suite position, understand their ability to impact individuals, but also departments and the overall organization too, which could just be one thing they say to someone that either makes them more motivated or less motivated, or keeps them there or causes them to look elsewhere. And even just taking initiative to do these things and making purposeful effort on this front. Because I think, sorry, my cat's going to chime in now. I think that's a great takeaway of this is, the title of this series or this presentation you guys did today is building a scalable talent strategy. And so many people, whether it's a startup or a small business that's, been operating for years, or even big businesses, they don't have people strategy at all. And, how can you expect for that to be a well-functioning part of your business if you don't purposely put effort into how it's going to function, from who you hire to how you, manage them and engage them and retain them. So I think that's a great,
yeah, for sure. Yes, your cat has a lot to say.
I managed to keep her away for a lot of it. So, well, thanks. We'll open it up one more time to any questions. Don't be shy. Otherwise, you guys have all of our information too. You can email Melanie and Justin after with questions as well, or find them on LinkedIn and connect with them and continue the conversation.
Yeah, don't hesitate to reach out. I know our emails are in the slide deck that you're getting. Don't hesitate to reach out on LinkedIn or email. We're here.
Yes. Oh, and I think I put this back up here with our email addresses too, if anybody wants to capture those.
Yeah.
So I love to talk about this stuff. I can geek out on it all day long. So
I agree. Yeah, Melanie, we still got to get together in person. I think we could go forever.
Oh, yes. All righty. Well, thank you for the opportunity. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us and taking the time to put this together for us and spending some time into your evening sharing it with us.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Glad to help. Thanks, everybody.
We'll see everybody on the next presentation tomorrow, which is about leadership, which plays right into this with the role of managers, and the rest of the week.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye, everybody.